Are you tired of your investment platform not giving you all the information you need? Trading 212, Free Trade, or even Vanguard not telling you how many dividends you received? You don't even know how you're performing month to month, or even year to year. Well, I have a solution for you. I have built a spreadsheet for you. This spreadsheet you need for your investment journey. You can track all your investments, and you can track all your dividends. This spreadsheet you can download for free through the link in the description. This video is split into two parts. The first part, I'm going to quickly walk you through how the spreadsheet works and give you a top level view of how you can use the spreadsheet to help you in your investment journey. And the second part is going to be longer form. It's going to be about 40 minutes of me talking through every single part of the spreadsheet, how each graph works and how the back end works. There are two forms of this spreadsheet. There's the import version and there's the data input version. The first part of this video, I'm going to walk you through the data input version very fast. And then the second part of this video, towards the end, I'm going to show you how the import version works and then again how the data input version works more in depth. So stick around in the video if you want to see more in depth on how it works. But here we are. This is the investment dashboard. This is the dividend dashboard. And then there's the back end, like the information tab. And then we have where you put your transactions in and then where you put your dividends in. The second part of this video, I show you all of these elements in depth. But for this part, I'm just going to show you how you input the data for both your investments and your dividends. So the first thing you need to do is to delete the data that's already on the spreadsheet. This is before you delete anything that's on the information tab. Now, how we do this is we select the third line here and we just scroll down to the bottom and just hit delete. This will leave us with the top two lines. This is because this formula is different from this formula here. Now, what you can do from here is to just delete these two values here. And all you need to do now when you're entering in your new data is typing in the date of purchase or sale, the stock ticker, the number of shares that you've bought, the price per share, the fees that you've incurred on that transaction. So this could be the stamp duty, or this could be any transaction fees that your brokerage charges you. The base FX rate, which is at the time of purchase, the foreign exchange rate that your exchange used to convert the US stock from dollars to pounds, and then the rest of these are all formulated. So if you were to type in all your data in these columns, and then you can continue on with this next part, which is onto the dividends received. This is the dividends received tab, and the same as the previous tab, all you need to do is delete the data and input the data that's required. So the parts that are required are date received, stock ticker, amount per share, which is the amount of dividends that you received per share, the number of shares that you had at the time of dividend, the tax withheld for US stocks, and the total dividend received. The rest of these are all formulated. You can also ignore this one here, which is formulated as well. So what you need to do is highlight all of the data, scroll down to the bottom, and just delete it all. You can ignore all of these NAs, and then you can just start by typing in your data here in this column, in column C. So once all the data has been cleared from those two tabs, you can now move on to the information tab, where you can input the stocks that you own. So the first thing you need to do is just to delete all of the data that's in the second row down. So you leave the first row as an example, and what you need to input into this tab is the market, which is going to be US or UK, the stock ticker, the name, which is pulled from the data type up here in stocks. So if I type in the stock ticker, GOOGL, and then I come up to data types and click stocks, it will convert it into this form, which is used for the current share price. And this is updated quite regularly if you're connected to an internet connection. You'll also need the sector and the dividend yield. And then the rest of these are all formulated. If I go ahead and put some test data in, so all you need to do once you've got all of this data in there is to just highlight all of the formulas and drag them down. And then the next thing you need to do is to type in the GBP to USD conversion rate, which you can find on the internet. And you type that into this box here, and then also type in the cash holding in your account. Once all of that is completed and you've input all of your data, the two dashboards should fill out the information for you. Thank you for watching this portion of the video. And now the next 40 minutes are a real in-depth walkthrough of how the portfolio works. There are timestamps in the description, which you can go to each portion of the video if you want more information on each part. So this video is basically a video on how the spreadsheet works, how my investment dashboard works, how everything in the background works, and how you can use it yourself to track your own portfolio, track the dividends that you have, track your investments, and there's loads of other features. I'm just going to sort of show you the basics of it, the two different dashboards, and then I'm going to walk you through how to set it up and how it works. So this front page here, this is the investment dashboard. We can see here that we have our total holdings, which is basically just it's a lookup into the info tab, which is the one of the background tabs, which we'll talk about in a second. Then we have the goals portion, which is just a text box, and you can just edit that text box. You can type whatever you want in there. You can add in another goal, like, I don't know, blah, 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 and it's just a text box, very simple to use. Then we have this graph here, which is basically tracking all of my investments, and that tracks basically every single purchase that I've done and every single sale that I've done, but it tracks it on a monthly basis. So it basically consolidates the monthly position and then shows like what the end month position was, and that's how it calculates that. And let me just show you actually where that looks at. So select the data. It looks at transactions month to month, which this tab here is basically, again, let's go back to here. So if we go to December, this is basically doing a sum if based on the date and the stock ticker. So it's basically calculating the buys and the sells that you've done in the month. And this is the import version. So this is looking at the import, but we'll get into that in a second on how that works and how you can manipulate that for yourself to get that to work. This graph here shows the positions in terms of whether they're up or down. So it's basically looking at the percentage gain or the percentage loss. Again, this one looks at the info tab. So you can see here the percentage gain, and it's looking at the stock ticker here. And if we go back, we can see the stock tickers along the bottom and then the percentages along the left. This graph here is basically just taking the cash position, the invested amount, and then also you can add anything else in if you like. I've added whatever other things that you have. I have crypto on mine. So we can see here, this is looking at the cash position, which is just over here. And then this is looking at the total invested, which is amount that I've invested into the portfolio. And then I've got my crypto amount, which I literally just paste in there. So I type that in there and I get that just from the brokerage that I use for crypto. So that's that. It's just a simple select the data. And we can see here that it's just like selecting the data like that. So that one is a pivot table, which is looking at, this one is looking at select data. It's looking at pivot table 4. So if we come across here, we have a look, it's looking at this one here. So we can change the data source for this one. And it's just looking at the information tab, which is, again, I'll show you how the information tab works, but that's basically looking at the import. And I'll also take you through the data input version, just because that's slightly more basic. You don't have to worry about how formulas work in Excel. It's just a simple case of inputting the data. But I'm just showing you at the moment how like the main dashboard works, so that if you wanted to change any of it, you can do that yourself. This one here is, this is just a basic graph. So I'm just selecting stocks and I'm selecting the percentages, and that gives us this graph here. These are basically looking at the information tab. So this is just a cash position, what's invested, the portfolio value, the return, the dividends received. Again, looking at the info tabs, that's looking at the import. Again, that's just calculation on the import page. You don't have to worry about that. Dividend yield, it's just calculate here. Total return, again, on the info tab. And then this one here, this graph here is just a basic waterfall graph. So I'm taking the total amount invested from the info tab, the gain and loss from the info tab, the market value from the info tab. So that's basically the current value of the stocks. It's basically looking at the stock price times by how many shares you have. That's what that is doing. And then your cash position, again, that's taken from either you're inputting it from the data input, or it's from the import and it calculates it from the import. And then we have the portfolio value, which is just the end, like the market value plus the cash that you have in your account. So that's that. And the dividend dashboard, same sort of thing. Again, this is looking at the dividend calendar, and I have a little calculation here, which if we go back to dividend calendar, these are just summing the monthly totals for my year 1 and year 2, because my years are different. My year 1 started in September 22, that goes to August 23, and my year 2 goes from September 23 to December 23, because we're not all the way through the year yet, but we will be eventually. Stay tuned for the next video. Dividends received, this is taken from this one again. Again, it's just monthly totals, but it's including every single month. I have to manually update that every single month because I didn't do any like pivot tables or anything on that one. Then we have some lookups, which again are just looking at the daily dividend calendar, which here this calculates what dividends you're receiving based on calendar day. It's a relatively complicated formula. It's basically taking the number 1, like the first day, and you got the number 1 as in the month of January, and then you got the year 2023. It puts that into a date form, and then it does a lookup based on that. And then because I'm taking it from the import tab, I'm also using whether it's a dividend or not, but that you don't need to worry about that on the data input because it's looking at a different tab. It's looking at the dividends tab. Again, I'll show that in depth on how that particular one works. This tab here, the portfolio value over time, is a pivot, and that is just looking at, if we have a look at this pivot table here, it's just looking at the portfolio value. Again, this is from the import sheet, and that's calculated based on the cash that I'm inputting into it. So that's giving me how much is actually in the in the portfolio. So yeah, these are just basic like equals on other tabs. We'll show you those. Future portfolio and dividends. So these three things, the investment increase yearly, so that's the percentage that you're increasing every year of your initial investment, and then your starting yearly investment. So it takes your current portfolio value. So for mine, it's about 11,000. And then you select whatever you put in here is your yearly investment. So if it's £600 a month, which it is for me, then it's 7,200. If it's £1,000 a month, you're going to be putting 12,000 in there. If it's £100 a month, you're going to be putting £1,200 in there. And then your price appreciation. So this is sort of like an estimate of what you think your yearly appreciation of your prices will be. So how much you think your stocks will increase every year. And also it's the same percentage as your dividend increase every year. It's very basic. It's not 100% perfect, but that's how it works. That's how this works. So for example, if I said I'm increasing my yearly investment, this is also an option. So you can change this to be increase in investments, no increase in investments, without dividends invested, and increase in investments, no cap. So for the UK, if you're investing in an ISA, the limit is £20,000 a year. So for me, I've put a cap on it so that it doesn't go above. If I'm able to invest £20,000 a year, I can't go above £20,000 a year. And then you can change it on the sheet to say there's no cap. So if you're increasing your investments by 10% every year, you get to 20,000 and it will stop. But if you put the no cap one on, it can go further than 20,000. So if we say increase in investments, and then we change this to 10%, so we're increasing it by 10% every year, that will then affect the figures that we have throughout the year. So with a 0% increase every year, the portfolio value in 30 years will be £930,000. But if we say we increase our investments every year by 10,000, by 10%, but it stops at 20,000, so you get to a certain size in your investments every year and it stops at 20,000, in 30 years, it'll be at 1.7 million. And if you say there's no cap, so there's no cap to your yearly investments, that will then change to 2,785,000 in 30 years. So if we say increase in investments, it switches. You see here at 20 years and 30 years it changes. But when it's a no cap, that goes even higher. That's because it's probably around 15 to 20 years where your investments actually go above 20,000 every year. I always like to keep it as increase in investments. If you go to no increase, it gets rid of the 10%, so that doesn't matter. And if you say without dividends invested, that does have increase in investments, but without dividends invested, with increase in investments, it's a lot less. Anyway, leave that as it is. Live off dividends is actually just like a base rate. Live off dividends is based on changes that you make in here. So the live off dividends date basically is calculated the same way as this is, but the values are changed in here. And that's simply because I didn't want to clutter the main page with all this crap. So this is your monthly investment. This is your increase in your monthly investments. This is your price appreciation every year. So what you think your price appreciation will be. And this is your dividend yield, which is actually, it takes from your current dividend yield. So if you have your spreadsheet updated with your current values, it does a lookup to info tab. You can see here the dividend yield is input here, and this takes from that. So this takes from here, and this averages your dividend yield, and this takes from the info tab. And that's your current dividend yield. And then you can enter in your living expenses. So this figure here is your monthly living expenses. Say I put as £1,500. When I retire, I don't know what it's going to be. If you don't have a mortgage, you don't have any rent to pay, £1,500 is very conservative if you're living a very frugal life. So that's what I set it at. And then 2% is like the inflation rate. So that's how much your living expenses should increase every single year. And then this column here is basically saying, is your monthly dividend greater than your living expenses? If it is, then yes. And if it isn't, then no. And then this is basically going, when do you hit first yes? So if we scroll down, we can see that, so by the time we hit 2030, for example, my monthly dividends are going to be £200 a month, and my living expenses have gone up to £1,700 a month. And if you keep going down, when we hit to like £1,000 month dividends, 2042, again, my living expenses have gone up to £2,200 nearly, and my dividends are only £1,000. But if we carry on going, we see here, November 2053, our monthly dividends just overtake our living expenses. Let me see here, says yes. So that's how that works. And that is, this date here is what is recorded on this front sheet. And then this graph is basically graphing monthly dividends against the living expenses. So we can see that the green bar is our monthly dividends and the red bar is our living expenses. And you can see our green bar is slowly getting closer and closer and closer and closer. And then it touches here at £2,700, or yeah, £2,700 roughly. And then if you carry on going, the green bar just goes crazy. It just carries on going. It cuts off. You can't even see it. It goes absolutely wild. That's like £9,000 a month in 2069. Anyway, so that's how the that's how the live off dividends date works. And then this average monthly dividends going forward takes from here and basically extrapolates what your dividend growth could be based on your current figures. This actually should be January now, so you'll need to update that every month, and then you can just double click and drag that formula down. Again, it's updated to 2053. I think some of these actually need to potentially be updated because my stocks have been updated, but we'll do that. We'll do that together. We're actually going to do that together. So that's that. Well, I'll show you how to update that in a second. And then the dividends by industry is taken from a pivot table, which is taken from here, which again is from the info tab. So now we've done with the dividend dashboard, how all those graphs work. The investment dashboard, we've done how all those graphs work, and I've shown you the live off dividends date. The live off dividends, which I'll actually now update for you. So the info tab, I'm just going to quickly show you how this works, the info tab. So how this works is you have your stocks. So I like write in my stocks, and then this name here, you can actually, if you go to data, you can select it as a data type. So if, for example, I type in let's say, I'll think of a stock ticker now. Let's have a look for a stock ticker that I'm actually considering buying. Yes. So if I go GAW, and then I go, so this is Games Workshop, which I'm actually looking at, considering opening a position in GAW, to be honest with you. Very interested in opening a position with GAW. Very annoying because the stock price is going up and going up and going up, and I just don't know when to buy into it. People are buying it because the ex-dividend date is on the 18th of January. And then there's going to be a sell-off probably because the dividend date has gone by, and then blah, blah, blah. Do you buy into it then? Oh, I don't know. Anyway, so if you can't hear, you've highlighted your stock ticker and you select stocks. This will then open this up and show as this, like here, like we have here. So that it shows you the stock name, and then it shows you the market that it's on. So this is the London Stock Exchange, and then it shows you the stock ticker. And then on this button here, you can actually select from here some different values that you want to input. So one of the ones that you can select is, I think it's price. So you can select price, and it'll give you the price. So this, for UK stocks, it gives it to you in pennies because that's how our stock market works. If you do like a US stock, it'll give it to you in dollars. And then there's other things you can do from there. The only one I actually use, I think, is actually just price. And that's simply because all the other ones, it's actually, I don't really care that much about them. You can't get dividend yield, which is painful. And I know, like Google Sheets, you can get a few other different ones. And if you download data, you can get quite a few. But for now, that's all I use. I just use price. So effectively, because I deal in both US and UK, I like to split them by typing in the market here. So I have the UK and US, and I use that to differentiate between dollars and pounds, and I convert it using the conversion, which again is something that you need to input, but I'll show you that. So you put the market, you put the stock ticker, and then you can use this to select the name. You need to select data types, make it a stock, and then that gives you the option to add in the price. Select your sector, which you can actually use this as well. So if we just select stock, Will it let me select it? No. Let's go GAW stock, and then you can select here. And if you go down to where is it? Industry. So again, industry gives you industry, leisure products. Again, you can name it whatever you want. Sometimes it's easier just to say like technology or insurance or healthcare or whatever, instead of some of the times they give a sector that doesn't, you don't like it. You want to change the sector to something else or something a bit simpler. Because I know like sometimes when you Google what the sector is in, it might tell you the sector that's not related to stocks. It's related to like something else. It gives you like a weird description of what the sector is. And then the dividend yield, again, this is basic. I take this from free trade. So I go to free trade and I update the dividend yield on a monthly-ish basis. I don't care to update it that regularly. And you can calculate your own dividend yield, but this is the dividend yield on like the most recent dividend, or the most recent dividend and their most recent stock price. That's what I like to have on there. Again, I only update it monthly. So total shares is a SUMIF from the import tab. This is the same for the data input. It's just going to be a SUMIF. Average price per edition. Again, this is just the average of the price. Again, same as the data input version. Current share price is taken from that stock piece. US, UK price conversion. Again, I like to use this because I like to know how much it actually is worth in UK terms. It's too confusing to have dollars and pounds all on the same sheet. So I update the GBP to USD. Actually, I'm going to do that for you now. Let's have a look. So all I do is I type in GBP to USD. Then I come down to this website here. And then all I do is I type that value in. So maybe can I copy and paste values? Let me see. Paste values. No. So all I do is I type that in. So now I'll do that. 1.2631711. And again, I update that once a month. If I'm making a video, I might update it again. But more often than not, I just do it once a month. It's not too in depth. It's when I update my data once a month. When I'm doing my stock update video, my dividends update video, I'll update that. Just so it's up to date for that video or for my own personal viewing. And then the US UK price conversion basically goes, if it's from the UK, divide it by 100, right? Because I want it in pounds and pennies. I don't like looking at it in pennies. I don't like going 430 pence. I like saying £4.30. This is just for my personal viewing. I like it like that. You can change it if you like it in pennies. And then if it's a US stock, so if we look at Microsoft here, it says if it's US, it divides it by the conversion rate that we just input there, so that it converts it into the pound value. So because this price here, using the stock data type, it pulls up the dollar for US stocks. This has no currency on it. It's just a value. And then total amount invested is the amount that I have invested. So you can see here that my biggest position is Realty Income, stock ticker O, at £1,600 invested. Quite a lot. £1,600 invested. I'm down 2.77%. We'll walk through. I think I'm going to have to do that as a separate video on my stock. My stocks. Because this is taking forever. This is a long video. But you can see, actually, I'm going to remove the formatting here from the selected cells. And I'm going to color that in gray so that you know that these stocks are... I've actually sold all of these. You can see the current value is 0 and I'm minus 100%. That's because I've sold them all. I've sold the position in those. And you can see gain or loss that I've made. The total amount invested is still £227 because I've made a loss of £227. Again, I made a video on that, on why I sold, and you can view that video up here. Current value, and then we've got gain or loss, which is basically how much you invested from the import tab, and then the current value, which is the current price and how many shares you have. So that gives you the current value. And then the gain loss just does what you invested minus your current value, or sorry, your current value minus the total invested divided by your total invested, which gives you the percent, and then you've got the actual pound loss. Or again, you can change this to dollars or euros if it needs to be, or any other currency. It should theoretically work with other currencies. I'll happily help anyone if they want me to help them switch it to another currency. Drop me an email. I can maybe hop on a call or send you a descriptive email back to figure that out. And then this is the percentage of portfolio, which is just the current value of that stock divided by the total value that you have invested, which is literally just a sum of your positions. And then total dividends received. This is doing a sum if based on the stock ticker, and it's looking at the dividends. Yield on cost is your dividends received divided by the total amount invested. That gives you your yield, your yield on cost. And then we have current yield on cost, which is total dividends received divided by the current value. So it's slightly different. And then we have return per stock, which is the gain or loss plus the dividends received divided by the total amount invested. Again, that gives you your return in percent, and then you've got your return, which is the total dividends plus the gain or loss. That's in pounds. We got our total dividends divided by our total amount invested, which gives our portfolio yield on cost. Total return, which is our total return figure here, which is the total gain plus the total dividends received. And then again, we're just doing the total return divided by the total amount invested, which gives us the 9% return. And if we come back across here, this value is the current value, which is the cash taken from the import tab, which I'll show you how that works in a second. The cash value, and then the current value is just the cash value plus the current value of your stocks. Gives you the value of your portfolio. So I'm sitting at just under £12,200. And then again, this is the GBP USD. So that's the data part of it. So this is like a summary page for your stocks. It pulls data from the either the import tab or the data input tab and the dividends input tab. And now I'm gonna show you how the import version works. So how this works is we have a few formulas along here. This is very specific to free trade. I'll very happily help anyone figure it out for their specific import for Trading 212 or any other app or website that lets you export your transactions, because free trade is very good. They let you export all of your transactions, which is one of the reasons why I've stuck with them, because I have actually really used the export, which helps so much with tracking it, because all I have to do every month is export the month's data. So like all of the buys and sells that I've done, any cash that I've input, any interest I've had from cash, anything like that, I can just export it and then import it. I'm going to show you right now how that works. And then I'm going to walk you through specifically like what the different parts are. So this spreadsheet here is basically an export from the 1st of January to the 16th of January, which is the day I'm filming it. And basically all I do is I highlight all this data. So I highlight all of this data and I then copy that. And I'll come across to the investments dashboard and I paste it in here. Now, if I paste values into that there, you can see that everything lines up all the way to the end. And then I drag this formula down, which is basically a ridiculous formula looking at this, because this is the date that they give me. And I've had to like make a ridiculous formula to manipulate that date. Hopefully maybe other platforms give you a nice easy date to work with, but I had to like create this ridiculous formula, which is basically like looking at the position of where the date is and then like forming an actual date out of it. And it doesn't even store it. It barely stores it as a date. Because I have to what I have to do now is I have to copy, paste values, and it sets the date wrong. It sets it weird. And I have to go to data, text to columns. All you have to do here is just click finish. Then it fixes the date in this format, which is now recognizing it as a date, but it's recognizing these new ones as American date. So then we have to go back to home and then we have to change the number to a short date, and then that fixes the date. It's a bit convoluted. And it's what you can do is, if you know where the columns are that the input tab uses and all the other tabs use, you can just change where everything's looking. I would hope that other platforms have an easier way of doing the date, but that's how it's done on Freetrade. Again, I'll be more than happy to help anyone figure out to get this to work specifically for other platforms. But if you can't figure it out, there is the data input version, which you just input all of the bits of data yourself. So I'll show you that in a second, but for now, this is how this works. Anyway, drag this formula down, drag this formula down. These are basically specific for the shares that you've bought, what you've invested. This is the portfolio value, which basically adds up any top up, any cash input I've done, any interest I've had, any dividends, and any withdrawals. And it's basically summing all of that up. And that's what goes into this graph here. And then we have some important metrics. The sheet is frozen, so you can scroll, but this top bit doesn't move. And these are some important metrics up here for your spreadsheet. So we have the sum of all the top ups and withdrawals. We have the total invested, which is basically just summing this column here, which is basically looking at how much you invested into each stock. And we have the stamp. This is basically the fees. We have the stamp duty fees. We have the foreign exchange fees. We have the dividends received, so it sums all the dividends. We have the interest received. We have the cash balance, so it's basically adding up. It does the remaining of all of these. So it does like the cash input, the total invested, minus the stamp duty, minus the fees, plus the dividends, plus the interest received. And it adds all of that up and gives you your cash balance at the end. You've got the dividends last 30 days here, which this is just the today's date, and then this value is today's date minus 30 days. And then you have your portfolio gains, which is just the max value in the portfolio. So the transactions month to month tab is basically a copy. You're copying your data here from the info tab into this bit here, and then this part of the spreadsheet basically does a sum if based on the date. So the date between these two dates, so December 1st, 2023 and January the 1st, 2024, based on the stock ticker. So you can see here that last month I sold my British American tobacco position, which I did a video on. And you can already see this month that I've made purchases of £338 and 49 pence. Again, this is just a way to track like what your transactions are month to month. It's nice to see that every single month, and to go back in time to see again what you've bought, what you've sold, blah blah blah. Then the daily dividend calendar. Oh, we're actually going to not look at that because that's a cheat code to my dividends next month. We're going to ignore that for now. We're just going to look at 2023. So I've already done a video on December, and I've done a video going back to June or May, I think, based on all my dividends. But anyway, this is basically a sum if based on the days. Again, it's looking at the import tab. Very fun to look at. I quite like this. This tab, and then the dividend calendar is basically instead of it being daily, it's looking at the individual stocks. So what dividends you received by individual stocks. Again, you're looking at January. I'm gonna hide that so you don't see that for Jan. But this is basically looking at the individual what you've received for individual stocks each month. And then you've got your sums. And then you've got your averages for, I think this is like the average dividends or whatever. And then I've got the average for the last 3 months. So that's how that works. Carries on. There's more to this. So that basically covers all of that. And we're going to go to the data input version. So you'll see here, the data input version is very, very similar. Everything should look very similar. The data isn't exactly up to date, but effectively the only difference is instead of having an import tab, we now have two. We have the investment transactions, which again, you can just copy and paste this from an export if you want to, or you can type it all in. So simplest way to do it is to just show you. So if you have your stock tickers all lined up here, again, input your stock tickers like we did earlier. And all you need to do for the data input is to enter the date that you bought the stock or sold the stock. You enter your stock ticker. You enter the number of shares that you bought. So 12 in this case, the price per share. So when you purchase the shares, it should give you the price that you bought it at. So you input that. The fees, if there was any fees. So for example, stamp duty in the UK. If you're buying different currencies, so if you're buying US, you'll have a base FX rate, a base Forex rate, foreign exchange rate. And then, so that's where you input that. And then you have the amount that you paid. This will be in dollars if you're buying the US, you're buying a US, or if it's UK, again, it's in pounds. And then the value, again, this uses the conversion rate, which is input up here, to convert it if it's a US stock. No, actually, it uses the base rate that you input here. Yeah, it uses the base rate. The reason why the base rate is important when you're buying the shares, because that gives you the rate that the company used to convert those shares at the time you bought it. So that's why it's important to put that in. And then your market, if you input the market here on this tab, this should just automatically pick that up. This amount here, you don't have to worry about that. This amount here, you don't have to worry about that because they're formulated. And then this is formulated, this is formulated, and this is formulated. So you don't need to worry about that. The main thing that you need to worry about is inputting the GBP to USD if you're buying US shares. Again, you might need to have other columns if you have, it becomes a little bit more complicated if you have different currencies, I'm not going to lie. And then cash in the account. That's, again, what I would put in there as well. Because the data input doesn't calculate, because you're not adding cash, it doesn't calculate cash. So I would just have your cash value there. You don't need to worry about these. These are all automated. One thing you might need to do is when you're inputting the values, you might need to drag down this table because this is a table. And then you may need to drag down any formulas that do not auto drag down. And to drag a formula down, you just use this little box here in the corner to drag it down. But you can just input the data at the bottom. And then for dividends received, again, it's roughly the same. It's a lot of colors on this. That's because when I was using this, I found it easier just to split them into colors. This column here, which you cannot see currently, if I input that. So this column here, this is formulated because this is used for some of the dashboards, I believe. And it basically, yeah, it's used for some of the dashboards. It's formulated. You don't need to worry about that column. For the dividends, you input your date received, you input your stock ticker, you input the amount per share that you received, and then you input the number of shares at the time of dividends. So how many shares you were paid for the dividend that you received. Tax withheld for US if you're receiving dividends from US stocks. The total dividend that you actually received. So the net value that you received. And then all of these other figures are formulated. So you don't need to worry about those. If anything has a formula in it, you need to leave that. So when you first start using this spreadsheet, so they're the only two other things that you need to worry about for data input. Sorry if you've been watching for this long and you've been waiting for this part, how to use it. But the simple fact is, what I would do when I first get the spreadsheet is I would fill out the this data here. So I would delete what isn't yours up to maybe the first line, and then I would copy what needs to go in there. So I would if you're entering new stocks in, you've got to go to market, you need to stock ticker, you need to use the data type above for stocks, for your stock ticker, and then you type in your sector and the dividend yield. And then you're going to drag down all of these formulas. So drag down all of these formulas to your next thing. So just highlight the whole thing and drag it down like that. And you enter in all of your stocks. All of this stuff the only thing that should fill in is the current share price. Everything else should show zeros because you've not input any data yet. Then I would delete every bit of data from here, excluding the top line, because you'll want like a reference point of how to input data. So I would delete all of this. Actually, you don't need to delete up to here, and I would just do this. Right. So that's going to give you weird values. That's going to give you a weird value. That's just because it's doing a lookup on nothing. Just delete all of that. And then for dividends received, again, just go to the line just before the top line and highlight all the way to the right, and then highlight all the way down. And then just hit delete. So then you have your top line here, and then you start entering your data. And then you may need to drag down these formulas. So that's how that works. And you could just start entering your data in. Again, you only need to enter the data up to here. Or for these ones here, so you've got your date received, your stock ticker, your amount per share, your number of shares at time of dividend, tax withheld for US stocks, and your total dividends. And then all of this should auto fill in. If you have this here, just looks to the investment transactions. If you got your rate there, and then yeah, you may need to drag all of these down. Sometimes it might auto drag down for you when you enter in a line of data, and then that will, well, because I've deleted all the data, it's cleared it all. But let's just undo that, do all of that, bring all that back. Anyway, that's how it works. I know this was probably like the longest video, like how to do a bloody spreadsheet. I didn't go through my stocks. I didn't go through any of my stocks. I didn't go for any of my stocks. I wanted to. I wanted this video to be that, but I don't think I have enough time. This video is incredibly long. If I manage to edit this down, hopefully this will be out this weekend. I might leave this video as like 30 minutes raw, edit out a few of the bits where I'm swearing or drinking water or farting or whatever. I don't know. I'm hoping this video actually does help. Because people have been requesting this video because the spreadsheet is quite complicated. And I've made it complicated because I just kept adding things to it. But it works. It works for what I use it for. It works for me. The data input tab, the data input tab is easier. It's what I used previously. I was using that for months, to be honest with you. I was using that for months. And then eventually free trade allowed you to export. And I was like, finally. And I built like a new import version of it, of the spreadsheet. And there's been a few iterations of this. I think I've been giving this out for a few months now. And this is a very good version. I'm very happy with what this is. It will still change and grow, and I'll change things about it, and I'll make things easier. And I'm gonna do a Google Sheets version of this. It's just like I keep saying in every single video, it takes time, like to get it to look good. You can't just copy and paste from Excel onto Google Sheets. Yeah, so that is the video. If you have any questions, like just put them down below in the comments or email me at xldividends.com. Wait, xldividends@gmail.com. I will reply. Like, it's an open mailbox. Like, don't spam me, please. But hopefully this video has been helpful. I've been talking, but I don't know whether it's actually been that good. Yeah. So yeah, that is the video. That is the end of the video. Thank you for watching this far into the video. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. Any suggestions on improvements to the video content or ideas for content going forward, please leave a comment below and I'll give you a reply. And yeah, any questions about the spreadsheet, just let me know. Email me, leave it below. I'll try and reply and give it the most concise possible. And if you sign up to the newsletter, you would have received this a few days ago. I think you would have received it yesterday, actually, the new updated version. So hopefully you've got that. You've liked the new updated version. And if you sign up to the newsletter, you get it instantly. But if you sign up to the newsletter, you won't receive it again until next month when you get the new updated version. So yeah, hopefully, yeah, subscribe, please.